I am here with John Billings, my good friend, my good buddy, roommate from back in the Hollywood days, and fellow Virginian. A guy who, like me, had gotten into his POS vehicle and driven across the country to chase rock star dreams and champagne wishes.
Yes. If you almost
So,
got, we were so
so
close.
it's the classic story of like Welcome to the Jungle video. And there's Axl Rose getting off the bus with his plaid shirt and the straw in his mouth, and he looks at pictures on the TV of a band performing, and he just kind of shakes his head like, what the hell is this? What were your first impressions when you got to LA and you got a copy of BAM magazine or Rock City News or any one of those mags, and you're straight from Virginia? And now, granted, I had a John Stamos kind of mullet. You had an Alan Jackson with a mustache.
I had the stash, bro. Because I was still a kid. I thought you had to do that to be a man. You had to have
That was a Virginia. That was the Virginia look.
we looked
And
ridiculous in California, bro. We looked ridiculous.
that's a huge lesson when you move to a new area, whether it's you could be the king of Virginia, but as soon
That's
as you
right.
go out to California, all bets are off and you're starting from zero.
That's right, dude. We didn't have the internet to do research. You just show up and you just look around and you go, "Oh, they're doing it this way. We're
So
not doing it. We
so
got to do it that way."
you open up one of those magazines and you see some of the most hilarious things. Just tell me what was going through your mind when you saw the bands that were playing there.
I saw Band Magazine and I went, "Wow, these hot chicks have penises. It's amazing." It's like, dude looks like a lady. It's like the song revisited in real life. And then I look at myself in the mirror and go, that ain't me. I mean, how am I going to do that? And it just feel that I always felt like I was out of place. I talked to you about that. I always just felt like I didn't belong there. But we played, we were out doing stuff. You were gigging, I'm gigging. You assimilated it way better than I did. I didn't want us. I fought it the whole time. And to my own peril. You know what? To my own peril, dude. That's true. I think I talked to you about this before. I used to work with Bart, and Bart would
Bart
go.
Walsh.
Bart
Uh,
Walsh, the famous Bart
we're
Walsh.
gonna get into all these characters. I want to do a chronological.
I'm not going to leap. I'm not leaping. But there would be parties, after show hangs. They close the door at the FM station, and then the real event happens, and people got gigs from that. You got to meet, Slash is out, or Janie Lane is over there, and you go have a cocktail or two or whatever else, and the next thing you know, they're on the road with these cats. They're playing with them because you hire people you hire people and you trust. So I think to my own peril, I took myself out of situations that could have been really cool for me, good for me musically and professionally. And because I didn't party and I had a job and I wanted to get up early, go to work and be a good employee, crap like that. Who knows? I always go, who knows what I missed out on?
Well, but you didn't miss out on the actual seeing it. And why I'm really want your perspective. And for everybody watching this video, you hear a lot of people talk about the Sunset Strip days, and let's face it, 70% of the time they were on another planet. And so there's a lot of stuff that gets forgotten. So for you to see this and to see it, because we were both kids from small towns. We were not used to, the big city like this and how things worked. Now I was more of a social drinker and partier and stuff like that. So I could assimilate to that as long as but you having clear vision. I would need to know though what was first. Was it the gig with the Japanese with all the shred guitar players? Was that first?
Man, no, I started playing with Kurt. Remember Kurt? Kurt,
Or James.
thank you. Okay, so it's going to be a lot of that tonight. It's going to be a lot of you filling in the blanks for me because I'm all feeble-minded.
Tell us about Kurt James, because this is a guy that's an underground guitar hero.
He's a guitar hero, the real deal, like a real shredding cat. He was amazing. He could in one moment he could go and sound like he's Hendrix, alive and well, right there in the room, and switch over to Eddie Van Halen, and then like clicking a knob, he's Yngwie. And the guy was amazing, and he was on the scene, and he had long hair. He had a little bit of a career going on already in Japan, so he was already kind of a made man in that genre. And Kurt saw me and you at a guitar show. It was like the LA Guitar Show or West. There was a guitar show, Santa Monica or something like that. We went, and I got on the bass and did a bunch of funk slaps, pyrotechnic stuff. And Kurt happened to be walking by, and he just said, bro, dude, that's cool, dude, bro. We should jam, bro. And I didn't think anything of it. We exchanged numbers, and we did. We got together, and then I found myself folded into the Kurt James band, and I don't even think we even had a name. I think it was going to be the Kurt James Project or something like that. And Kurt, then I met Scott Patterson, from Lancia and Atomic Punks. That's how I met Scott. And Neil, our singer, was Neil, and Neil was for a brief moment, was it Alcatraz?
Was it Neil Turbin?
Yes, you're going to have to help me fact check.
He was in Anthrax, wasn't he?
Anthrax, thank you. It was Anthrax. So Neil had, everybody is kind of a made guy except for me. I was the new guy. And we did rehearsals a couple of times a week at this rehearsal studio, which we shared down the hall with Racer X. And Kurt knew Bruce Bouillet. He knew Paul Gilbert. And so we'd sneak in there and peek in. There's Scott Travis. It was cool. It was like we're all doing our same endeavor. And there was a little camaraderie there about it. It wasn't quite as fiercely competitive. Bruce Bouillet was super cool. And, everybody was cool. We're all doing our thing. We're all flipping hair and trying to play super fast. And that was back when everything was shred. And, Kurt had me playing some crazy shit, dude. Really was amazing. I got to play. It was not something I was used to doing. That wasn't a style. Me and you back then, we were like funk heads. We're all about R&B and funk, and we were total Van Halen nerds. But like we always gravitated to this other thing. And now I'm steering back into rock and roll. So for me, it was a reintroduction to the scene, all of it. And I think one of the first things you're talking about, like images you capture that stuck with you forever, is I opened the rehearsal room door one night. I got there a little early, and Kurt lived in that room. I mean, he didn't physically live there, but I think he might have slept in there a little bit. But he'd be there all day shredding, tweaking guitars. He was an amp geek, so he'd tear amps apart. He just stayed in there. I came in early one day, and they had a full-length mirror in there, and Kurt is in front of the mirror with his guitar on, working on his look, his faces, and
the stance, bro.
The stance, he had this, yes. And I just stood there.
His fighting stance.
His fighting stance. I just stood there. I wasn't mocking him. I just was like, what am I seeing here? And I guess this is what these cats are doing. You got to look good while you're playing, You never see a picture of Eddie Van Halen where he's not smiling, where he's just uptight playing. He's always got the look, the stance, the kick, the face, the smile. And Kurt was working. And I never see anybody practice that. And I was like, wow, I'm in a different world. This is a whole nother world, man. It was cool.
Yeah. And so
there. Yeah.
So people know like we had gone from like jamming with like the Wooten Brothers and stuff like that. And back then thump bass was the thing, at least in Virginia, right? It was like the best bass players were all like thump players. And so you had all these thump chops. But I remember like when we were sharing this shithole apartment in Hollywood, Sycamore Lanai, dude, we were in this one room apartment, right? And you were working in a photo lab.
Yeah.
And I would go to GIT during the day, and I would come home and go, oh yeah, here's this harmonic minor scale. And so you'd pick up the bass and we'd start running the scale.
You were teaching me what you learned.
I would show you what I say, hey,
Yeah.
check out this altered scale, or whatever. And so you were picking up that stuff because I had the sheets laying
Yes.
all around and stuff like that. So you'd come home and when you're young, you've got energy. So after work, you're like, okay, yeah, let's,
Yeah. It was
you
like
know,
second musical smoke, and then I would take, you had to clock in. Like at that school, you had to go and clock in. And some days you're like, bro, I'm not clocking in today. And I go, I'll do it. So I take your ID and I go swipe it and I just walk around. There's Jeff Berlin. Look, there's Paul Gilbert. Holy cow, and it was cool. You could sneak into class or take a look, check things out. But I got a lot out of your musical education. I got a lot out of it. I got the benefit of that. It was cool.
we were able to work on things, but we didn't really have a clue of what was even you were trying to find gigs. And I
Yeah.
remember you played with like some fusion guy, and then he stiffed you or something, some money, and it was always some shady kind
It
of
was always
situation.
shenanigans.
It was
Always
always,
shenanigans.
and,
Do you
and then,
remember?
go
Do you
ahead.
remember the guys that lived? The first gig I did in LA that I remember, the first gig, and it was like probably a week or two after I got there. There was two guys that lived across the street in an apartment, and they did porn music. They did music for adult movies, and I played a gig with them, and I think it was at the Viper Room, like a showcase.
The
Here's
Central. It would have been the
yeah.
Central
I
then.
I think that's where it was. Yeah. That was my first gig, and those dudes were, nice enough guys, but it was just one of 1,000 of those, like you said. And usually there was no, the money was like
50
weird,
bucks.
yeah, and it cost that much to drive there and gas and then eat and hang out, and
Yeah. Pack of
it was,
strings.
yeah, it was a set of strings, man. Be like, well, I'm broke again. There we go.
Yeah. So, okay. We're doing these gigs. You hook up with Kurt James. You start
Yes,
realizing that thing about rehearsing with a mirror. I mean, that a lot of bands did that because they were all trying to create this poster, like posterize yourself in this image okay, you're going to run to the front during your solo but
yeah,
as
yeah,
soon as
choreographed. Yeah,
so you went from Kurt James then to doing the Japan thing, right?
I went there exactly. Kurt had a manager, a young girl named Miko, and Miko was working for a management company that put together this thing called it's like the Monsters of Guitar or something like that. And it was, again, here comes the fact check, bro. Go back and fact check. Vinnie Moore. It was Kurt James, Joey Taffolla. Um, it was Mitch Perry. It was help me.
Angelo Batio.
Yeah. And I think that was it. I think it was just those cats. But I remember, back then it's cassette tapes. So I'm like, well, have everybody send me what I got to learn. Every guy was going to do 2 songs and a solo. And it could be any 2 songs and then take your big solo. And we could only afford to take a bass player, and then we're going to hire a drummer in Japan. And I remember at the time going, oh, that's going to be interesting. Just because we're going to go to Japan and we'll probably get like some jazz guy riding on the ride or something, spang-a-lang on the ride. And we ended up getting this cat. They called him
Bad.
Dr. something. And he was a famous guy in Japan. And he was amazing. Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah, double bass, he literally notated everything out, memorized it, which is crazy, and then played it. He was killer. But they started sending me these tapes, and I don't know if your viewers have ever gone back to that era of guitar playing, and that was
The
it.
peak
That was the peak.
of
And so
rock.
these guys are like, well, of course you're going to be playing these unison lines with me, and of course you're going to be playing 16th notes the whole time, and we're going to be at this breakneck tempo and double bass. And so, yeah, man, some of that stuff was like, David Chastain. His stuff, man, was crazy fast. And just unison lick. And it was a lot of work. And I just spent all my time woodshedding. And then we go to Japan. We did 2 shows, Tokyo, and I think I can remember the second city.
Nagoya or Osaka.
It could have been either one of those. I'm sure it's online. And there's a few photos out there. And it's actually video. There's video of me playing with these guys. It was great. I had the best time. Everybody was cool. There was not so much of this going on. There was a little taste of it, but it was a healthy competition, you know. And everybody was so different. Mitch Perry had a whole different style, and Vinnie Moore could pull the blues thing right into the metal thing. It was a really cool combination. And of course, Kurt was up there killing everybody. Joey. There was no slouches. And then at the end of the night, you know what they did, right? Throw everybody out on stage. Oh my God. Noodle insanity. Note after note. Your turn. You're faster. And there's video. I've seen YouTube videos of that. It's hilarious. And I'm up there with my blonde hair kind of like lost. What the fuck's going on here? But it was man, what an adventure. But in the story of John Billings and his whole California experience, nothing came out of that. Like, that was over, and that was it. Okay, great. That was fun. And that seemed like everything I ever did out there. I'd get to do something, and then it was over. And then I'd do something cool again. This is great. And then it just didn't continue. And everything I did would just go this course of, it's over now. And I kept thinking, is it me? Well, they're not playing either. They're not gigging either. I spent a lot of time reflecting, like, what am I doing here? Wrong? What am I doing wrong? Or am I in the wrong place? But that was just one of the many examples. And Kurt, we did a record with Kurt, and Allan Holdsworth produced the record. And I mean, that guy was my hero. And I used to carpool with him. He lived in Orange County near where I was living in Santa Ana. And I would go and pick him up. We'd drive in my POS 260Z with no air conditioning up the 5 freeway at the worst time of the day. And I'd be like, you know, like that Paul McCartney skit on SNL. Like, hey, Alan, remember when you did that song Metal Fatigue? That was really cool. It's really cool. And he was so nice. He was like shy and humble, but he brought me into his house. I met his wife, his kids. He played me. He was like, you want to hear some music and some tracks I'm working on? Like, yes. And we go in his garage, and he plays me Secrets. He plays me the record Secrets. And Vinnie Colaiuta on drums, Jimmy Johnson. And that was that moment where I'm like, I can't believe I'm standing in this guy's house. I've listened to this cat for years, spinning records at home, listening, trying to learn these songs. And here he is. He's just playing. What do you think, John? What do you think of this? You know, that was bizarre. But then, you know, record's over. It kind of got released, sort of, and then it just went away. And it went back to the photo shop. Or by this time, we're in the pawn shop. Brad and I started working in a pawn. Brad pulled me into the pawn business. And I spent 6 years doing that. Wow, that was crazy.
Look, but don't underestimate these things that you've glossed over the fact that you just played with about 6 of the biggest underground names in shred guitar history, learned all their material, doubled the lines, and I know you did.
Crazy, dude.
You were shredding that. I think I even saw you like practicing that stuff at the time. I think you even brought it to the pawn shop or something and would practice.
I probably did. It probably was practicing on lunch break. Because I mean, that's the fastest stuff I ever had to play. And I'm old school. Turn the metronome down, speed it up slowly, then try to get it all fluid. It took me forever to get that gig under my fingers. And then once we got there, I felt good about it. Everybody played great. We had a great experience. Everyone was cool. We all hung together. And it was only it wasn't even a week, I don't think. I think it was barely a week. I wish we could have done more of those. I wish I could have done more of that sort of thing, because it was fun. It was a great experience. But no, I think the next thing that happened from Kurt, you know, I knew the drummer, Scott Patterson. Scott pulled me into a band called Lancia. And
okay, here's where we get right into the Sunset Strip. So you show up in town, and you look like Alan Jackson, and you got a mustache and a little like mullet, right? But gradually, like you assimilate, like we all did, and your hair starts getting longer, and we just kind of let it grow. And I remember when you joined this band, and you said, "Dude, they want me to cut my mustache." I said, "Cut the damn mustache, bro." I'm like, I remember you saying that. Yeah, they want me to get. I said, dude, just but you were so used to having it.
There you go, dude.
That's you and Bart Walsh.
And that I forgot the name of that studio, but it's a famous studio in Hollywood. Guns N' Roses was in the next room working on Use Your Illusion. That's when they were working on that. And I've got another. I'm doing the old. I'm so slack, dude. I'm just thumbing through Facebook looking for
You
those.
could have emailed me those, and I could have
I
just.
could have done that. Hey, the beauty of the internet and podcasting. This is really happening. You can do it on the back end. I'll send you some stuff on the back end. You just fly in a thumbnail, babe.
We fly it in. So now this is, I mean, it's pretty incredible because it's like 1 minute you're kind of like you're going to be a muso and you're doing fusion gigs and stuff like that. But then all of a sudden you're like, well, maybe if I join this and do a different path of something that's trying to get a record deal and trying to chase that brass ring, and you get pulled into a whole nother world, even more than the Kurt James and the Shreddy guys. The Sunset Strip scene was a whole nother cast of characters.
That's right. And I knew nothing about it, really. I was way on the outside. And to me, it was just a circus. It was bizarre. I didn't understand it. And so Scott Patterson from the Kurt James band introduced me to Bart Walsh. They were working on a record. They'd had a little bit of money, so I put some money behind them. They put a band together. And they named it the singer's last name, which you should never do that. Don't do that.
And he owns it.
Yeah, your listeners know. Don't do that. Stop that. Stop it. So we named it Lancia after Paul Lancia's name because it sounded cool. And I recorded with them, but I didn't want to join the band. I was like, this isn't my thing. You guys, this is not a direction I want to go ahead in. But so I played on the record. There's a lot of bass playing on the record. They let me play. They wanted me to play. They wanted to have a pop record that had exceptional musicians, like not Racer X level musician instrumentation, but shredding. Bart's killing. He's on fire all the time. Me and Scott are playing together. Scott's an amazing drummer. He and Scott Travis sound so much alike. And it's heavy double bass, and the drums always sound like they're about to explode. So you get to play. So I played the record, and I said, I don't want to do the band. No hard feelings. We're friends. See you guys later. And they brought in Robbie Crane. So Robbie was young. I think Robbie was in high school. I think he was in high school. He was a kid. And Robbie did the gig for a while. And it didn't work out, didn't pan out for whatever, all these things have different reasons for whatever. And they called back and they said, Robbie's not going to be with us anymore. Did you think about doing this? Oh, and I saw some shows. I went to see Lancia play with Robbie. And I think it was a Troubadour. And I was like, look at this. Look at the chicks. And look at look
how many people.
Look at the place was packed. As a matter of fact, I think that night, Robbie didn't own a bass rig. And I hope I'm not mixing these events up, but it was Robbie. I remember watching him do it. Robbie used to hang at the Rainbow. I'm sure he's underage at the time.
Yeah.
And he would drink and hang out with John Entwistle. So he became friends with Entwistle. Robbie didn't have a rig. And John Entwistle had his LA rig. He had a rig in LA in a storage room. So if they came to the States, that's where they get it from. So John Entwistle said, either he offered it or Robbie asked him, but John said, yeah, take my rig. You can use my rig. The rig is taller than Robbie's, taller than me. It's this huge Trace Elliott monstrosity. I'm sure there's photos out there. So Robbie, the Lancia's playing, they're all rocking. He's leaning up against the rig. He's doing that whole kind of Hendrix thing from reverse. The rig's doing this. And I was like, holy, that thing's going to fall over. And sure enough, it went backwards, and Robbie started walking forward and went, the whole mountain of bass rig tumbled right behind him and hit the ground. And here come a couple of stage hands, and they're trying to pick it up. And Robbie's still he sees what's happening. He's horrified. He's like, but the show's got to go on, bro. So he's just, he's doing, if you ever seen Robbie Crane, he's all over the stage. He had all the moves, bro. He had all the moves. So they put the rig up, plugged him back in. I guess it still worked. He just kept on playing. But I saw that show, and I went, the next time they talked to me about it, I said, yeah, I want to do this. This is good. This is cool. This is not what I thought it was going to be. They're on fire. They're playing the Troubadour. Oh, the Roxy, the whiskey. I'm going to do this. So, yeah, you're right, dude. They asked me, and I said, absolutely, I'll do it.
Yeah, they were headlining pretty much right out of the gate. And that's not something that, Paul Lancia had built up a reputation as the singer of a band called Paradise, right?
Yeah. Paradise, yeah.
Paradise, okay, because there were two bands. There was a Paradise and there was Paradise.
Typical LA.
And he was the singer of Paradise. And Dave Marshall played in that band, and they were a very popular Sunset Strip band. But I guess, they kind of ran their course and decided to do other things. And so they started, what happens if a group doesn't get signed, within 4 years, it's kind of like, let's break it up, mix up the pieces and try something else. And so that's when Lancia was formed. You got the stellar Bart Walsh, who played with David Lee Roth, and we'll get on to how that whole thing happened. But can you tell me about your first gig on the Sunset Strip?
It was at the Roxy. Of all, I mean, come on, that's like
it has to be
Super Bowl, your first season of playing. Mm-hmm. And I got up on stage. I had an amazing time. I'm looking out at a sea of beautiful women, beautiful men, their flowing hair and their eyeliner, and playing. And we're loud, and we got our moves. We're moving and doing this, and you got it. The whole thing. I had my Music Man Stingray, so I was on fire. I had my favorite bass in the world.
You could do it really fast, like Sheehan style runs. John would do. He would be doing, especially on those.
Oh yeah. I ain't never seen a triplet I didn't like, dude. You know that. But that was great. It was an incredible night. And then, you know what I remember from that night, my first gig? I got to make out with a girl in the back parking lot of the Roxy.
Bing bong.
Oops, maybe I've been doing it wrong all
along. Dude. So we're going to have a drinking game on my channel.
You were great. You were so great. I was like, oh, was I? Okay.
I guess I was.
Oh, okay. That's from that night. That's my takeaway. That's what I remember from that night more than anything, is that I was like, this is what I've heard. It's true. The stories are true.
One night is all it would take. One gig on the strip.
A lot of insanity.
You go from zero to hero. And man, know, when we first got out there, and we didn't have our look down, and we didn't have the right clothes. We didn't have the right clothes. We didn't know how to talk. We didn't know how to walk. And you're a zero. Girls won't even glance in your direction.
They don't even look. Do you remember that girl that I met at the photo shop? I used to work at a photo shop on Hollywood, at Hollywood and La Brea, back when you had pictures. And there was this bass player, a female bass player, and she, brunette, Italian, really pretty, and I had a crush on her. And she'd come into the store for photos, and I was like, okay, I think I talked to you about, like, I'm gonna ask this girl out. But of course, there I am, Alan Jackson, mullet, the wrong shirt, the wrong pants, everything. And
we were a decade behind LA. We were a decade behind.
I was 20. I didn't even know how to talk to girls. And she was like, no. And I was devastated. And I was like, I'm not talking to anybody else. That's it. I'm out. I'm out of the girl game. Not going to ask anybody out. I was so hurt, man. But you know what? She was just like, she had a band. She's rocking. She was hanging out with Sheehan back then. Yeah. She was, and I'm like, dude, taking her money at the photo shop. I don't blame her.
Yeah. Yeah. But you figure out your thing. And once you join one of those Sunset Strip bands, it's like a whole nother world opens up. It's opportunity, it's debauchery, it's madness, just random dealing with crazy, musicians. And
we didn't even bring up the drugs yet. I mean, come on, dude. You're leaving the listeners, you're leaving out the important facet of this.
Okay, so we had the girls that would kind of hang around the bands. Did you notice that a lot of them were taking accelerants so that they'd stay thin? You remember that?
I always thought, and look, I'm a dumb kid from Virginia. I never did any of that. I've never done any of that stuff.
You didn't even drink back then.
No, I didn't drink. I would have, if you bought me a whiskey sour, like that's a total girl first drink, I would go, oh, that's delicious, and that's it, and move on. Like, I'm a late bloomer in the alcohol thing. And so, I mean, I didn't do anything. So I just thought it was peculiar that these girls could stay up all night. And I remember Paul and I met a couple of ladies one night, and Paul Lancia, and we met at a party, and we went back to their house, and I was working 6 days a week at the pawn shop, so I'm beat. You'd work all day, you work your 8-9 hours or whatever, and then just jump in your car, go to your gig, your rehearsal. Oh, I'm at a party now. It's 11, 12 o'clock at night. I'm in bed. Oh, I was hurting. So I was literally like, I went into one of the girls' rooms, and there's a bed, and I just laid down on the bed, and I was like, and I was out. I went out cold sleep. And so now it's morning. I'm waking up like, oh God, I got to go to work. Okay, I'm good. I can get out of here. Where is everybody? Where, I'm at this place. There's nobody here. And I heard some talk. And I opened the closet door of the bedroom, and there's Paul and these two girls, and they've been up all night. And they're like, hey, bro, how's it going? They're not doing there's no sexual stuff going on. They're just sitting there in the clothes. And I was like, you guys never went to sleep? You've been up all night. And so that's when I was introduced to that scene that I saw with that scene. I was like, oh, I get it. There's some help here. They're not doing this on their own. No. They've been up all night because they were tweaked all night, Oh
my God. And they probably felt safe in the closet. Like they can't come get us in here. So we'll hide in the closet. That's the kind of rationale that you're dealing with.
I thought it was so that it wouldn't disturb me, but I think you are right. They're probably like, no one will see us in here.
Yeah, we'll never get shh. We don't want anybody to hear us. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
I had never been around any of that. So it was just bizarre behavior to me. I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. And it took me, you were the one who kind of educated me like, dude.
Yeah. It was just, there was all kinds of stuff, and people would get, spun out, and band members, things would go sideways, and people would disappear. People would disappear for a couple days. Did something like that happen, I think, for a while?
I saw that a lot. I mean, that's how Lancia folded. We had the whole we went the whole Spinal Tap, got a Japanese record deal at the end of it all, when Seattle came along.
What year?
Collapsing. What is that? 92?
91, 90?
91, 92. There was a big thing where it was all coming out of Seattle now. And the hairband thing was known on the strip that labels were being told, no more hairbands. We're done with that. There's something new going on. And we were kind of watching the walls coming down around us. But at the last moment, we got a little bone thrown to us, a Japanese label. Actually, it was Koch Records. Koch Records? It was probably Coke Records.
Yeah.
Some of the Japanese. Funded by Coke. Yeah. KOC. There was a Japanese, but I remember they would call and they'd go, we want to check how our recording is going and everything. We were like, oh, things are going great. Where's Paul? Where did he go? Where the fuck?
Oh my God.
And we needed vocals done, and this, and it was me, Scott, and Bart sitting around a rehearsal studio. He's no show. He's gone. And eventually, I won't get on it got really bad for a while. Yeah, it got really crazy. It got so crazy that I came to rehearsal armed one night because I had been explained to me that we were going to be dealt the lesson. And I was like, well, let the dealing begin. And he never showed it. And that was it. I never saw him again. I've never to this day not seen him. And but we found out later, we didn't know if he died. We didn't know anything. We found out later that he had just moved out to Vegas, which was funny. That was a thing that people did then. They would just uproot and move to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And that was it. So that whole thing ended. And then do you want to get into the next chapter of what that turned into, or?
Well, yes. Yes. I think so. Yes, I believe so. But I just want to make sure I get all of that. How long did that band continue on? And, how many shows are you talking about? 8, 9, 10?
We did a bunch of shows over the years, and we'd always do, the big rooms, the Roxy, Whiskey, True. We'd go down to Orange County. There was a place right off the interstate in Orange County.
Marquee.
Is that it? That's probably it. Yeah.
And then the Waters Club.
Yeah. I had some crazy stuff happen in Orange County.
FM station.
FM. Always, yeah. FM was great. I remember getting chased around. I remember a gang of people chasing me in Orange County. They thought I was somebody else, and they chased me. I was in a car. I was sitting in a car, and these people came up to the window like, "There he is! That's the guy!" And I was looking out the window, going, "What are they talking about?" And all of a sudden, 10 people surround the car, and this guy comes up to the window. He goes, "Get out of the fucking car, man! I'm gonna kick your fucking ass!" And I was in the car with the girl, and she's freaking out, and I'm screaming at her, going, "Put it in reverse! Get us out of here!" My rig, my bass, everything was in the club still.
Wow.
I said, "Just get us out of here!" And she was, "Oh my God, I can't!" And I was like, "Well, here it is. It's fight or flight." So I jumped out of the car, and Wing Chun days, I'm like, I'm assaulting. We're going in. And I jumped out of the car, and the guy was like, came up to here on me. And I fists up. I'm like, "Let's go, motherfucker!" And he's looking at me, and he realizes he doesn't know who I am. And I'm like, "Are you going to do this? Are we doing this or what?" And he goes, "Hey, man, you're the wrong guy." And I'm like, "Well, I'm ready. Here we go." And he's like, "Nah, fuck you, bro." And they all ran off. It was like something out of a Marky Mark movie, a rock and roll Marky Mark movie. It was so stupid. And the girl's crying, and I'm like, "Goodbye." I went and got my rig, and I told Scott, "Guys, just trying to kick my ass out of here." So every now and then some weird shit like that. And I think that's booze and drugs and all that. They thought I was somebody else that had insulted this guy's honor or some bullshit.
Yeah. You get pulled into stuff. You get pulled into stuff.
Exactly.
Being in LA, and it's a dangerous place to be. And so you're just trying to, do your gig and take your date home and have some fun, and you get pulled into these things. Now, the same could be said for the pawn business that we both worked in. There were many times where there would be threats of violence, and sometimes weapons drawn and things like that. Now, we can't get into that on YouTube because then they'll probably cancel. But the main point is that it was a very dangerous place. It seemed like, in the movies, you're seeing palm trees and, bikinis and all this. But underneath the surface, there was always, you could just be doing your job, and all of a sudden, just everything.
Oh, it goes sideways. Yeah, it goes sideways. Yeah. I watched that happen. I watched it happen with you. One of the customers that we knew, and the guy just went nuts. And you guys got in a verbal altercation. That's how I lost my job there. I got in a verbal altercation with a guy that we knew. And he started yelling at me. And the next thing you know, I slipped and told the guy to fuck off. And now, that was my last day there. But it's funny that the shop that you and I worked at together, and the time that I was there, I felt it was safer. We were behind bulletproof glass and steel. We were okay. The people out front, they're not okay. But you and I were relatively safe. And the other two shops I worked in, one in West Hollywood, at Santa Monica and Martel, we were not safe, and we had we were right there on the counter with people, and we had some crazy stuff. We had a shotgun around the corner. We'd rack a shell into it. We always leave it empty, so we'd rack a shell so they'd hear. If things got funny out front, we'd go around back, and somebody would rock that thing. It wasn't. I always I'd start talking to my wife Amy about it, and I always remind myself that not every day was the worst day ever. You and I had laughs. We got to meet cool people. I try to remember that there was some cool stuff that came out of it as well. And I got to meet some of my heroes, sometimes not under the best of circumstances, or sometimes like Jonathan Moffat, Michael Jackson's drummer, came in. He's a watch guy. So he wanted to come in and look at watches, So I had a great talk with him. I sold VCR to, oh my God, of course his name's gone. He was in Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone. He was the nemesis. Good-looking Italian
Let us know in the comments.
Let us know in the comments. He was in Judge Dredd. He was the evil judge. And he came in and to buy
Wesley Snipes.
No, that was wrong. Wrong one. That was a different one. And I remember the guy from the Indiana Jones movies, John something, the Indy, the British guy. And he was a Hasselblad collector, and we had Hasselblad bodies. So he would come in and I'd show him cameras, and that was the cool part of that gig. I love that stuff. I love seeing these guys. Some of my heroes walk in the door, and sometimes they came in because they weren't doing so good, and that was That was a drag. I got my heart broken a couple of times by seeing people I loved and respected in a not a great situation. And I think you remember some folks like that.
Yeah. The guys in Earth, Wind, and Fire, and some different people that would come in and pawn their stuff. And it's important that people hear this because it's the reality. If you're going to go out to a big city, and especially back then, you didn't have any Facebook Marketplace, you didn't have Reverb, you didn't have any way to sell your stuff. And if you were short on rent or if you had a problem and you needed money, the only way to get it would be to go to a pawn shop. But it is it's like getting into the system. If you get arrested, it gets tough to get out of the system. So you can get easily into it, but it's tough to get out. Now, we want to get back to Lancia and the singer, the singer disappearing, right? And you guys have a gig on the books, and you're like, well, what do we do?
We're working on a record, dude. We're recording. We're in the process of making a record. We're moving forward, but our singer's gone, and the whole thing is derailed. And we're having that come to Jesus meeting, like, well, what are we doing here? What the fuck? We had paid for the rehearsal studio. You know, every month it's $200 or whatever, $300 a month. We all have to pay for the studio to house our gear, and then you meet 2-3 times a week to practice your tunes. Which Bart and I used to fight about that. I'm like, why am I practicing these goddamn songs? And I could walk away from this for 10 years and remember all this crap.
Yeah.
But that's just what you did. That's at the bands. You stayed together. You stayed limber. You stayed playing all the time. So Paul wouldn't show. So we would just jam. What else are you going to do? We'd play through our tunes, like we played through our set. And then we're like, you want to play some Van Halen? So we'd be playing Van Halen tunes. And at some point, I remember Bart I think it was Bart that had the idea of he said, Ralph Saenz sounds just like David Lee Roth. He could do Roth better than Roth can do Roth. We should invite him over and we'll just have fun and jam. So Ralph came over and we just played Van Halen tunes. And Bart had the idea. Now this is 93, maybe?
About 93. Yeah.
Going and doing a show at FM station. And again, one of the, many moments of my life where I was always making the wrong call, making the absolute, no, that's dumb. Who would do that? That's so stupid.
This is before tribute bands were a thing.
Tribute bands? No, that didn't exist. That wasn't even a thing. Yeah. And so Bart's like, man, I think I can get us a few $100 to play at FM station. I'm like, a few $100, really? Okay. This is ridiculous. But all right, I love my guys, love Scott. I'll do it. We'll do it. And we did shows, and holy cow, the FM station would be packed with people. It'd be Janie Lane to be out there, Bret Michaels hanging out, because everyone's a Van Halen fan. Who doesn't love Van Halen? And we would just do all the pre-Sammy Van Halen stuff. And Bart would pretty much nail this Eddie's tone and sound, and Scott, we just went in and played it like we knew it and loved it. And Ralph was Roth. In my book, I mean, I was watching him on stage. I'm like, he's Roth. He's like young Roth on fire, can sings great, sings amazing.
Does the screams.
Does all the screams, the kicks, the shtick. Yeah, everybody, between the songs, he would just switch Roth on. And we started going, you know what, maybe we should be doing this. This is not what we wanted to do, but you get lemons, you make lemonade. So we started playing around, and we just weren't making any money. And that was my main beef. The gig was great. It was fun. But after we'd rent a truck. Here's the reality of this. We all have equipment. We all have gear, right? At that time, it was more important that you were not seen setting up your shit. And when I even say it, I feel so ridiculous saying it now. But that was the thing. And I was like, well, I'm just going to move my rig out there myself. And they're like, no, we're hiring 2 guys and they're our stage crew. And I'm like, you're hiring them? You mean I'm hiring them? We're paying for that. Yeah, that's what we do. And we'd have 2 guys, and one guy would set up the drum set. The other guy would haul the rigs in and put the guitars in the stands. And I'd always go, this is ridiculous. We're in a nightclub. You've got a crew in a nightclub. This is so stupid. And we're paying for this. Well, you're not paying for it because what we're making on the gig is paying for it. And I was like, God. And then, got to rent a rider truck. Who's going to rent the truck? Well, we'll rent the truck. So, you would do these gigs, and sometimes Bart would come back and go, well, you owe me $50. We didn't quite make it. So this went on for the better part of a year. The band's playing. We were gigging as the Atomic Punks. And it was killing. And Ralph at the time was also doing metal
shop.
Metal shop. So that was huge. That was doing great. So Ralph was on fire. The band and some of that was bleeding off. Some of that success for Atomic Punks was bleeding off of metal shop because people would come out and see what Ralph's doing, what he's up to. And we got to a point, probably not quite a year or something like that, and I was having a personal meltdown moment of my life. Like, what am I doing here? I'm playing Van Halen songs at nightclubs with these guys I love, but I'm not making any money. I'm broke. I'm still doing my 6 days a week. I was living in Redondo Beach, which was the best part of me living in LA ever, was living down there. But I was living with somebody I didn't really have real strong feelings about. And I was miserable. And I had a night with Bart where he said, and I wish we had not had this moment. We made up, we were friends after it, but it was a rough moment where I just said, I can't do this anymore. I can't give time, and he's like, oh, and by the way, you owe $300 on the rehearsal studio. And I literally took my rig and slammed my hand into it, threw the giant huge PV cabinet over. I still have a scar on my wrist from where the steel grate, sliced into my arm. And I was like, fuck yeah, I quit. And that was it. I walked, I lifted my rig, I lifted that cabinet.
Wow.
I left that cabinet and they said, I'm out, I'm gone. And I just had a break, man. I couldn't do it. I wasn't doing anything. I was trying to play muso gigs on the side too. That wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm like this dude with long hair. I don't fit in any of that world, in the R&B world at all. I just didn't feel like I was doing anything. I felt like I was really messing up. And then Bart, letting me know that I owed him money for rehearsal studios that I didn't even want to be in anymore.
Yeah. And this is, at the same time, so the Strip is dead. So bands are putting together tribute acts, like Atomic Punks. And then there was Cold Gin, which was a Kiss one going at the same time. And that was the early days. But because it was the early days, it hadn't been monetized like it is now. Now that, you might get 10 grand a night for a good tribute act. But back then it was like, oh, it's just the same hair metal guys that we used to get for free. So we'll just give them a few coins because they're going to play songs that people already know.
We'll give them some beer. That's like the same as money, right?
Yeah.
Can't pay your bills on beer, man.
No.
I couldn't do it anymore, dude. I was just in a really bad space, and I quit. I quit everything. I quit playing music, and I put my bass in the closet for 6 months. I pulled it out one time in Redondo Beach. There was a blues. I was walking around one night, and there was a blues jam down the street from where I lived in the village of Redondo Beach. It's called the Village. And I went in there, and I was like, you know what? I want to play. I want to do this. And one of the drummer recognized me. He's like, oh, you're John. I know you. We played together on something. Why don't you bring your bass? You know what? Next week, I'm going to do it. I'm going to pull my bass out of the closet. And to me, that was a big deal. I had put it in the closet. I hadn't touched it. And I pulled it out of the closet the next day. I tuned it up. It's pretty rusty, but I'm going to do this. I go down there, just walk there. It's 2 blocks away. I go in. I'm excited. I'm going to get to sit in and play with the band for the first time in 6 months. And you know what it does when you go to a blues jam, right? There's a house band. When people start sitting in, the blues band bails. They go get beers and piss.
Yeah.
And talk to people. And then the sit-ins come up. And I walk up and I get my bass and I look around like, where are you guys going? And they're like, you got it, man. And sit in drummer, sit in guitar player, sit in harmonica, with the harmonica bandolero on. And I was livid. I can't say how mad I was. I could have just started, Keith Richardsing people with my bass at that point. And it was exactly like I thought it was going to be. It was just horrific, awful. And I was like, that's it. That's really it this time. Come out of here. Storm out my bass after the song. And I'm not playing bass anymore. And I didn't really do anything until I moved to Nashville. Meanwhile, the moment that I leave, Scott Patterson and Bart, they hire Joe Lester. and Joe starts doing a gig on bass. They start making money out the gate. Bart started finally getting gigs that really paid, $2, $3, $4 or whatever, and they're making money. And I was just like, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
And I love Joe, and he's killer. He's great for the gig. He would wear the Michael Anthony jumpsuit sometimes, the coveralls. And then, I'm hearing these stories. Did you hear what happened the other night? They played a gig in Pasadena. Michael Anthony played half the night. And I was just like, wow. Man, I quit just on the cusp of it really succeeding. And, and the end story is that Atomic Punks became like an artist band. Ralph ended up splitting because Steel Panther blew up. That thing all happened and exploded, and Ralph left. But then they just found another singer, and I was like, they'll never find another singer. They found another great singer, and they to this day, 2024, they fly around the country. Atomic Punks flies around doing gigs. Scott. So the story that I understand it is, everyone starts talking about Atomic Punks in L.A. It comes across the attention of David Lee Roth, because I think he was on Howard Stern, and he was like, "Yeah, man, there's this band called Atomic Punks, and they're bringing the Van Halen back." So Roth is aware of it. Michael Anthony's going out and sitting in, and he's alluding to that this is more fun than playing in Van Halen, which he was probably pretty honest about. And this is the story that was told to me by Bart. Roth wanted the whole band. He wanted the Atomic Punks as his person. This is after his whole solo thing. He's not really doing this.
Yeah. He's not doing it at that time.
He needed a band. And this made a whole lot of sense. I get it. I mean, here's a band. They already know all the shit. The show, there's lobby call. There's bus call. See ya. See you at the gig. And apparently some fans got wind of it, and they started ranking on him, and that's lame. It's totally lame. You can't do that. It's a tribute band. How bogus is that? So Roth ended up just taking Bart with him. So Bart became his guitar player, and from Korn,
Ray Luzier.
Yeah, Ray, and Ray ended up doing the gig as well. And
James Lomanza.
Yeah, I think Brett Tuggle, was he playing keys at that time?
I don't know.
I think he spent some time, maybe it might have been later when Matt Bissonette was doing the gig or something. I'm not sure, but anyway, that was the band. And so Bart was on the road with Roth, and he's working, and they eventually they found a guitar player, just kept on working, and they just kept on going. And the band became owned by Scott. So Scott Patterson became the last man standing. So he had the band, and Scott worked it. He's still working it, man. It's pretty cool. It's amazing. That thing's outlasted most real artist acts. It's incredible.
Yeah. And at one time, Atomic Punks had Satchel on guitar, and it had Ralph, aka Michael Starr. And so it's almost like those two kind of paired up, and then went and just blew up, came up with the concept. And I was talking with the author of a Van Halen book last week's interview, and we brought up the humor that Van Halen had, and how most of the bands on the Strip didn't pick up on that. They would steal the sound, they'd steal the grooves, they'd steal the riffs, but they didn't get that humor element. And Steel Panther was able to see the humor. Hey, these songs are really just funny dick jokes, and let's play up on this, and captured that thing, so it's
absolutely,
it's fascinating that he went from basically imitating Halen to coming up with a even crazier on it.
Yeah. Michael Starr was born, and he's genius. Ralph is a freaking genius, man, and they've turned that into a career. That's an artist gig now. They're the artist, and it's amazing. It's brilliant. It was brilliant that they tapped into that, and they saw it, and they stuck with it. And the rest is history. They're out touring the world. It's crazy. But I got to, I did a gig. So I moved to Nashville on Brad, talked to me to move to Nashville. It was the best thing I ever did. And I was out in California, somewhere in Northern Cali, doing a gig, a street fair with some country artist. And opening for the band was going to be Atomic Punks. So I actually got to go. Joe's like, play a couple of songs. Just stay up there for like 30. So Joe let me play, and I got to have like a little reunion with the new singer. I had so much fun. And of course, everybody in the band that I was playing with that night were like, this is incredible. So that was fun.
That's
That was
awesome.
Yeah.
Everything can come full circle, and that's kind of the amazing thing about life. I feel that everybody's story has a little bit of redemption, and we all get to the point where we're like, I've had it, I can't take it anymore. And sometimes you have to transition. And we'd be here all night if we were talking about your Nashville experience. But John went on to, from playing with the Wooten Brothers in Nashville to playing with Donna Summer to touring with Shelley Wright and sessions and all kinds of different stuff. And he's currently still playing live with Mickey Dolenz, from which it was the Monkees a few years ago, and now it's just Mickey Dolenz because he's the last of the Mohicans.
Last one. Yep, he's the last one. Yeah, I got to play with Mickey. And the funny thing is, when I was with Donna, and I remember none of this. I really don't remember a lot of what I did on the road, not because of drugs and alcohol, just because I wasn't paying attention half the time. Yeah. We did a show with the Monkees or some kind of a way. And Randy Ray Mitchell, the guitar player for Donna Summer, I think he was the one that told me, he's like, yeah, the Monkees, that's their buses over there. And I don't know if it was we were there the night before. Like, a lot of times you get to a town where there's a venue and you get to the night before, but there's somebody at the venue, you go see who it is. And I think Randy went and met the Monkees guys, and Wayne Avers was there. Wayne was in those buses, and I end up all these decades later, Wayne hires me to play. Yeah, I'm still in it. Yeah, I'm playing this Saturday if South Carolina doesn't get blown away in the hurricane.
And that's a lesson that the one thing advantage that we did have, because we weren't just LA rockers, we were musicians that played different roles, did different things. Look, sometimes you got to put on the costume and do the little dance, and then sometimes you got to dress it down and do different things. And to be able to go jump styles from hair metal to disco, well, having that foundation of music to pull it all, to carry you through the styles. You can listen to a style of music, analyze it, go, I need this sound, I need to know these licks, and boom, and you're right in it. And that is a testament to some of the great players that we grew up with. I mean, Victor Wooten and a lot of guys that you don't know about that would just blow your mind if you were aware of these people play.
Oh, absolutely. And you and I wanted to be musicians. We wanted to play our instruments, and that's where we put all our emphasis in until we got to Los Angeles. And then we also realized at that point in LA that, well, it's also show business. We need to work on the show part of this. And that came just like practicing. It didn't happen overnight. The show thing came. It didn't happen overnight. It took a while for it all to kick in, but eventually, it's funny, dude. Today, I'm out. I'll be playing with Wayne Avers standing next to me. And when Wayne takes a solo, my LA brain kicks in, and I always step back out of the slot, and he steps into the hole. It's like a football scrimmage.
Pull back.
And then when he pulls out, he steps away. I fill in the gap, and I'm like, that's that stupid Roxy. Oh yeah, we got it. You move up, I'll step back. I'll tell you one thing. When Paul said to me one night, he's going to do his own podcast and tell horrible stories about me.
Is he really?
I'm just saying that he's going to hear this. I feel about John Billings any day. I'm tall. I'm 6 feet. Paul is not tall, and no shame. He's just
this is what it is.
That's just what it is. And I remember one night we're at the Roxy, and I'm standing next to him. We're sweating, and he's got his shirt off, and hair's everywhere, and it's a sea of beautiful women down below. And he's singing, and everything's great. And he's like, hey. I'm like, yeah, bro, what? And he goes, get away from me. Step away from me. Because I'm like this, so taller than the guy. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. And I get it. It probably looked like this giant gorilla standing over him. And I was in the moment. I was like, yeah, we're like on fire. And he's like, step away from me.
He's thinking about himself instead of thinking, hey, I would have been like, hey, use the fresh meat as bait. You know,
I'm I'm all right with that. I mean, I get it. I get it. You want, I get it. I get it, dude.
he's the front man.
It's the front man, and that was something he didn't want. If he's out front, he just didn't want it to be apparent. It was bothered him. But I always thought that was funny. And it's funny. When I work with cats on stage that are not as tall as me, I'll assume the rock stance, and that brings me down like 4 or 5 inches, and then everything's like this now instead of that. And it's like
You get the Rob Trujillo crouch.
you get the crab. You gotta
right?
do the crab. The master of the crab.
Man, this has been an absolute blast. I
Dude.
thank you so much.
I love it.
I salute you.
I salute you, Mr. Henderson, for bringing the world the truth about the Sunset Strip and that era that will never be again.
Dude, and we didn't even we barely even touched the surface. We didn't get into Tower of Power, the jams we used to do with Tower of Power.
Yeah. Dude, we got all that. I mean, that's many podcasts. That's many.
Many podcasts.
But the strip, dude, that's a time that will never be again. And it was amazing. And you're doing a great thing by giving people a behind the scenes look at it. It's cool.
Man, thank you so much. Have a great evening. Everybody go see John Billings with Mickey Dolenz live on the road. He will be doing Sheehan runs.
He will not be doing that. No.
He will be doing Sheehan runs through Last Train to Clarksville.
No. He will not be doing it. Play for pick, bro. Flats. I play flats, bro.
Dude. I'm gonna be that guy. So playing in the 80s, there would always be one guy in front of the stage going, dude.
Oh yeah.
Dude, tap, bro. Dude. I'm gonna come to your show and be like, dude.
I will tap for you. I will tap for Brad Henderson.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for a great time, and I'll see you.
Great. I'll see you soon, buddy.
Hey, man. Later.